What I want to do is pick up on one of the themes that Sarah started to develop there and briefly summarise some of the conclusions that we drew from a report we published recently about securing investment in nuclear in the context of a low-carbon environment, which I notice has flown off the shelves on the stand outside. It does focus on nuclear, but it is relevant to the wider low-carbon debate and, importantly, market reform and affordability. Just to remind ourselves very briefly on the backdrop, the government has set ambitious targets for the reduction of greenhouse gases. That will require substantial investment in low-carbon generation. Most analysis points to the fact that nuclear has significantly lower lifetime costs than other forms of low-carbon generation. And most analyses would suggest that nuclear should play a significant role in the energy mix going forward. However, that does not necessarily mean that the nuclear investment is required will actually take place. So moving briefly onto the observations. Oops, wrong way around. Firstly, and I think the Minister had this in spades this morning, there is a very strong need for clearer direction, planning, and indeed communication to the markets from the government on how it will meet its targets. Number two, the positive investment decisions on nuclear, at least on the scale that are envisaged, are simply not going to happen under the current market framework. The current approach to low-carbon generation relies very heavily on a series of somewhat inconsistent interventions. Now, we would argue that the creation of a more consistent market for low-carbon, more consistent market to reward either low-carbon energy or low-carbon capacity would enable much of this investment to take place. The issues then become one of whether you try and apply it to a single low-carbon generation market or a series of markets based around different technologies. That new market for low-carbon generation could be established by imposing obligations on suppliers, very much as we have at the moment in offshore wind, or indeed stepping into the market to procure low-carbon energy in a way that is being undertaken through CCS. Our observation also is that the market participants would generally prefer a mechanism that leaves them bearing some significant degree of market risk, which tends to take you down the road of tradable obligations or premium feed-in tariffs. However, we'd also observed that the large-scale and rapid expansion of nuclear generation, alongside the other substantial forms of energy investment that are needed, would stretch the on-balance sheet capacity of the market participants beyond levels that are realistic. Now, if it is deemed to be desirable to build out substantial nuclear, perhaps there is a more radical change that is needed, a radical change that de-risks the nature of the investment, and a radical change that can attract alternative sources of capital. So in closing, I think one of the observations that we would make, and we would emphasise very strongly to government, is that the UK risks missing its carbon targets without early and radical reform of the electricity markets. Thank you.